शरणं मम
श्रीकृष्ण 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 शरणं मम
शरणं मम
शरणं मम
शरणं मम
शरणं
शरणं
मम
मम
शरणं मम
शरणं मम
शरणं मम
बोलिए श्री कृष्णचंद्र भगवान की
जय।
सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की
जय।
कृष्ण मुरारी जय कृष्ण मुरारी
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 मुरलीधर पीतांबरधारी
मुरलीधर पीतांबरधारी
मुरलीधर पीतांबरधारी
मुरलीधर पीतांबरधारी
माई मीरा प्रभु गिरिधारी
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 कृष्ण मुरारी जय कृष्ण मुरारी
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 वृंदावन गोवर्धन धारी
वृंदावन गोवर्धन धारी
वृंदावन गोवर्धन धारी
वृंदावन गोवर्धन धारी
सूरदास के हृदय विहारी
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 कृष्ण मुरारी जय कृष्ण मुरारी
कृष्ण मुरारी जय कृष्ण मुरारी
Hari Om everyone. Can you all hear me clearly? Hope and pray you're all doing well. Let us start today's ātmabodha, 29th and 30th, I believe. So after the invocation, Brahmacharini Divya, after invocation, Brahmachari Hari will lead and I will repeat the shlokas. And then Brahmacharini Divya will go through the two shlokas, then Brahmachari Hari Chaitanya will, and then I will sum it up at the end. So let us begin. ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः Okay, 1 second. You have to go through the motions. There you go.
तपोभिक्षीणपापानां शान्तानां वीतरागिणां मुमुक्षूणामपेक्ष्योऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते. 29. स्वबोधे नान्यबोधेच्छा
स्वबोधे नान्यबोधेच्छा
बोधरूपतयात्मनः
बोधरूपतयात्मनः
न दीपस्यान्यदीपेच्छा
न दीपस्यान्यदीपेच्छा
यथा स्वात्मप्रकाशने
यथा स्वात्मप्रकाशने
निषिध्य निखिलोपाधीन्
निषिध्य निखिलोपाधीन्
नेति नेतीति वाक्यतः
नेति नेतीति वाक्यतः
विद्यादैक्यं महावाक्यैः
विद्यादैक्यं महावाक्यैः
जीवात्मपरमात्मनोः
जीवात्मपरमात्मनोः. Thank you, Hari.
Can you hear me well? Okay. So svabodhe na nānyabodhecchā. So by knowing the self, of knowledge of the self, there is no other means of knowledge that we need to have in order to know that self. Why? bodharūpatayātmanaḥ. It is the nature of that Atma is that it is knowledge itself. An analogy is given. Na dīpasyānyadīpecchā. We don't want another light to light a lamp, to see the light of the lamp using another lamp. So yathā svātmaprakāśane. So in both the analogy and the actual statement given, the nature of Atma is self-illuminous, svātmaprakāśane. So up until now, we have been told all the things that the Atma is not. It's not this, it's not the upadhi, it's not the mind, it's not the body. And in one verse, we were given in more of a direct definition of what Atma is. It is Sat, Chit, Ananda, Nitya, and Nirmala. And we were given the instruction that we have to transcend all the upadhis in order to come to know and realize this self. At this point, we need to put our hands together and be like, excuse me, I have a question, I have an objection. How do I know the self without using any of my equipment? Everything that I know up until now, I know I can see things with, my eyes. I feel things with my mind, and I have ideas in my intellect. Everything that I know has come through these upadhis. So how can I know the self without these? And so the Guru says, transcend all of it and you'll see. Like, no, come on, seriously, how do I know? And say, okay, fine, don't worry about it. No, seriously, tell me, how do I know the self, right? It's in different ways that they keep asking, how do I come to know the self? And that's the essence of this verse and the next verse. How do I know the self? The answer is, there's nothing for you to actually do. The self is of the nature of consciousness. It is the light, as we saw in the previous verse, that light can illumine everything, like the jar, the pot, everything that's in the room. Just like that, the light has that capacity to illumine everything, all of these upadhis and the objects, emotions, and thoughts, OETs. But it does not require anything to come to know the light itself, because it is self-illuminous. So again, that idea is emphasized by saying that, let's say I'm in this room full with light in it. I see everything that's going on, all the transactions. Do I need to go hunt for a torch and hold it up to the light and say, okay, now I see the light in the room? No, right? You don't need another light to see the nature of the light. So how does this translate in terms of our upadhis? If you look at our indriya, our buddhi, and mana, they're all of the nature of jada. So something that is jada cannot shine light on that consciousness, that illumination. So the analogy I'd like to, the scenario that I think can help understand this relationship is, we have the sun and it shines light on a mirror. And that mirror is where you angle it just right so that it shines into a dark room. And now you can see everything that's happening in that room. Now, if that mirror starts to think to itself, you know what, I'm the one producing the light, I'm the one shining all the light in here, and they keep telling me the sun is the one that is the source of light, fine, let me turn around, use this light that I have and shine it on the sun and see if I can see the sun. That makes absolutely no sense. As soon as the mirror turns towards the sun, there's no use for the reflected light. It goes away, it's unnecessary. So in the same way, when the buddhi starts to turn inwards to find its own source, it starts to negate its own function. So the buddhi cannot enlighten the self because it is just an instrument, it is jada. The self is self-illuminous. Then why is it that our shastras keep telling us that the way to reach the self is through the mind? And there's an emphasis on, okay, I need to purify my mind. I need to make it single pointed. I need to concentrate it. I need to meditate on that one thought of Brahman. Why do we keep, it seems to be contradicting each other. It is not. Indriyas, so let's start with the outermost. The indriyas are needed to listen to the Guru and to understand the mahāvākyas. Then the mind needs to be purified through the process of Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana, so that there's a clear, crystal understanding of what that Mahavakya is. And that clear, crystal understanding is called Brahmakara Vritti. And what does this Vritti, a thought, do? It removes the thought of ignorance. We're removing the veil of ignorance. We're not knowing the self directly through the knowledge. All we're doing is removing the ignorance thought in our upadhis. So the example is, if I use wind to push aside the clouds, does the wind then directly cause the sun to shine? No. The sun just automatically starts to shine. The only purpose the wind has is to move the clouds. So the mind is needed for it to gain that Brahmakara Vritti. That knowledge is the only one that can remove ignorance. That is all that needs to be done. After that, the self shines all by itself. And this is where the purpose and use of our indriya and our manas is needed. After that, that's it. You don't use the equipment to find and understand the self. So a little bit more of this is given in the next verse. Niṣidhya, after negating what? Nikhilopādhīnneti, all of these upadhis. And we're not just limiting it to the BMI. It is stula, sukshma, karana sharira of this body, but also the stula, sukshma, and karana of the prapancha. So the microcosm, macrocosm, all of those layers are negated. How do I do this? There's the Upanishadic statement, netīti iti vākyataḥ. Not this, not this, not this. I am not the gross body, I'm not the subtle body, I'm not the causal body. I am, and all the 5 elements, all of the bodies are of the macro world. Also, it's not that. So in an interesting way, actually, we have seen a lot of this process in our previous verses, right? This netīti process. When we look at the gold, right? The necklace, the rings, the bangles, all of them are made of gold, but their reality doesn't actually exist. It's the gold that exists. Or in the case of the bubbles, it's sort of made out of water, but it doesn't have its own independent existence. Water is the reality. In the same way, the entire existence of my macro self and the, micro self and macrocosm are all just appearances on that reality, which is Brahman itself. And so one of our gurus, I believe it's, I'll come back to that. There was a guru that I was listening to, and he gave a very good example of this netīti process that I have to think to myself that first I have to give back to the world what I thought was mine, right? This body, stula sharira, came out of this prapancha stula layer. So Bhagavan, I give it back to you. My mind comes from that cosmic mind. So the Bhagavan, I give it back to you as well. And so in all the 3 layers, and realizing that where we are, we're just borrowed it and automatically thought it was mine. So I have to now negate it and say, no, this is not mine. This is not mine. This is not mine. After that, then I have to come to understand that this aikyam is there, that the jivatma and paramatma, the individual self and that supreme self are actually one and the same. That is, and how do we do that again? It's by the Upanishads again. There are mahāvākyas. And in fact, you can summarize them in 4 mahāvākyas that are given. Prajñānam Brahma, Tattvamasi, Ayam Atma Brahma, then Aham Brahmasmi. And what's unique about these 4 is there's a purpose for each one of them. Prajñānam Brahma is its very definition of what Brahman is. Then Tattvamasi is the instruction given by the guru. Once that instruction is given, the student sits and meditates on it and has an anubhuti, an experience ayam atma Brahma. Once that experience has happened, he declares back to the world, aham brahmasmi. And both the netīti process and the mahāvākyas confirming that aikyam all comes from the Upanishads, our Shastras, because our Shastras are Pramana. There is no other place that has the authority to tell us that which is beyond all upadhis. I cannot use science to understand that which is beyond the world. I cannot use my mind to understand that which is beyond my mind. The Pramana must be the Shastras alone. And it's not just following their instructions blindly, it is asking us, go through this process of netīti, then for yourself, by doing all of these sadhanas, you will come to experience the reality in itself. This is the only means. So looking elsewhere for confirmation of this process and the truth, there is no other pramana but the Shastras. So that's all I have, Swamiji.
Everyone. Good to see everyone again. So we've seen right off the bat, from the very beginning of our study of ātmabodha, that moksha is the result of jnanam, not karma. But the logical question is how? What are the mechanics? What is that tedious process, if there is one? And to understand it, to go through this process, that jnanam gives me this moksha, that's detailed in these two following shlokas, to allay any kind of doubts that we have about that process. The first example that's given in the 29th shloka is dīpasyānyadīpecchā. For a lamp, there's no need for another lamp for it to illumine. That would just not be in line with logic. And this example shows how important it is to understand the very implication of Atma's self-lumosity. Now let's think for a second. Suppose that Atma was not self-luminous. What would the implications of that statement be? That this Atma would need one other Atma to illuminate then. That Atma would need another and another and another, and we fall to the fallacy of infinite regression, infinite number of Atmas that are there. Therefore, it's not the one and only. Entire Siddhanta we see in Shastra would fall apart if this one element was not understood. Now, to know that how the mechanics work in the inner instrument then, because it's given svabodhe nānyabodhecchā, that with reference to self-knowledge, there's no need for any other knowledge. So how do I recognize anything in this inner instrument? For any knowledge of any object to take place, there's a two-part mechanism. One part is called vritti-vyapti. Next part is called phala-vyapti. Vritti-vyapti, phala-vyapti. Vritti-vyapti is the perception of that object. There's a water bottle in front of me. I understand that this shape, this kind of texture that I'm seeing there, what it's holding, all of that put together, that thought comes to my mind. This is a water bottle. Perception of that object is there. Phala-vyapti is the illumination of that thought by the chidabhasa. That reflected consciousness that is in my inner instrument, that is illumining the thought of that object, completing that thought there. Now, Atma is not any object to be known that way. Because if it was, then vritti-vyapti would let me know this is Atma. Phala-vyapti would be the functioning like a flashlight illuminating light itself. That's illogical, that serves no purpose. Therefore, because Atma is self-luminous, there's no need for phala-vyapti. That simple vritti-vyapti, brahmakara vritti, that is all that is needed to know Atma. So that mechanism works very technically in that way. And because bodharūpatayātmanaḥ, svātmaprakāśane, because it's the form of knowledge, its form is knowledge, it illumines itself. Now looking in the next shloka, the basic siddhanta, jīvātmaparamātmanoḥ aikyam, oneness of the individuality and the supreme self, that there is no other explanation for oneness other than there is simply one without a second. Any apparent divide, seeing myself as this jiva, seeing that as the paramatma, that is only because of upadhis that I've owned up as my identity. Now, if we look at mahāvākyairjīvātmaparamātmanoḥ, by the great Mahāvākyas is how I understand this truth. Mahāvākya is that statement found in Shastra that indicates my infinitude. That's what constitutes a Mahāvākya. And in the text, in the commentary, there have been 4 that are given, 4 that are widely known, but they're not confined to these 4. For example, in Kaivalya Upanishad, we find tattvameva tvameva tat. That's also a Mahāvākya. So it's not just that these 4 are the only ones. There are a multitude of statements indicating my infinitude across all Upanishads. Now, if we look at the components of one Mahāvākya, for example, tat tvam asi, let's see how much goes in, how many details there are in one simple looking phrase of simply 3 shabdas. So tvampada vichara of that. There's a whole logical process to go through when it comes to tvampada vichara. First, seeing this body assemblage as a modification of elements, just like a pot. I'm so attached to it thinking it's me, but just like any object out there, it's simply a modification of the 5 gross elements. Next step, just as I perceive a pot, meaning I'm different from that pot, if I can perceive this body, naturally that means I'm different from this body. It's as integrally me as much as the car. It's my body, not me as the body. And the same logic applies for the pranas, the mind, the intellect as well. So there must be some changeless entity moving the intellect. For the intellect to have all these oscillations, constant change that goes to because of vrittis, there must be one unchanging element there that in whose presence this intellect moves. That is Atma. But then we also find in this tvampada vichara that Atma is not acting, or else that would break Siddhantas again. It wouldn't be nishkriya anymore. It would be one entity that acts. Therefore, the example is given. It's like how, when there are iron filings next to a big magnet, is the magnet really doing anything to make those iron filings move towards it? Nothing at all. Simply the presence of that entity makes these filings move. Just like that, that presence of Atma makes this assemblage move in a similar way. So tvampada vichara culminates in recognizing many things. What is the seen? What is the seer? To recognize what is changing and what is unchanging, and then to recognize what is the illuminated and what is the illuminator. All of that has to be doubtlessly understood. Then we move to tatpada vichara. This is where we look to Shastra extensively to see what is this tat, that it's referring to, what is the nature of it. Free from all impurities of samsara. That's one. Sattasvalakshanaha, having existence as its specific definition. No other definition works there, simply that it is the nature of existence only. Vedaihi samarthyate, that which is proven in the Vedas as the all-knowing, all-powerful supreme. Objective contemplation given by the Upanishads. Having the quality of phaladātrutam. The sole paymaster is Brahman playing through Maya. That's Gurudev's own words, that Jagadishvara. Now, why this extensive list of all the attributes of what that tat is? Because I cannot go anywhere else than Shastra to understand what that is. Doubtlessly, knowing what that tat shabda represents is only found in Shastra, clearly given to me in the Vedas. And then asi, that they are pointing at that one without a second, is the import of tattvam asi. Now, there are many objections that are given. Even when this is given in Shastra, some can say, oh, this is simply arthavada, meaning praise. For instance, whenever we watch a discourse by Pujya Gurudev, a video of it, many of us have said it several times, he roars like a lion. That's his speaking style. That's a praiseworthy statement. The lion is the king of the jungle. When it roars, everything else either flees or freezes. Therefore, when Gurudev is laying out the Siddhantas the way he's doing, doubtlessly with great dynamism, he is roaring like a lion. Tattvamasi is not that kind of a praiseworthy statement. That you are so great, you are like this unchanging reality. That's not what it's saying. It is saying you are nothing but that one without a second. Get rid of those upadhis you've taken as your identity. understand what you are. Now, niṣidhya, nikhilopādhīnneti, that time-tested process of negating conditionings as not this, that's the way we get there. Now, a note here. Again, it has to be in line with Shastra. No other stream of logic works. Because we talk about Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasana. Mananam is only Mananam if it comes after Shravanam. Doubtlessly, without any impediments to my logic, understanding through Shravanam from Shastra what the true nature of this Mahavakya is, without that, logical gymnastics without any proper Shravanam only digs me deeper into a hole of confusion. Which also means, and we look at Pujya Gurudev's commentary here, he clearly writes that Bhagavan Shri Adi Shankaracharya ji, even in his time, in his commentaries, had to defend the true meaning of this Mahavakya when it was being altered and changed by a Advaitin mindset, by another philosophy which had it wrong, which was saying it can't be one without a second, that can't be your identity as a jiva. There has to be some bheda, some difference between you and that Paramatma. It can't be another way. He dispelled of that wrong notion. Now, we're still seeing false convictions when it comes to Tattvamasi today. In today's day and age, what's the impediment here? There are some people in the garb of Hinduism that claim when it comes to Tattvamasi, the Shabda Tat, meaning that, is simply any higher reality. Jesus is Tat, Allah is Tat, Ishvara is Tat. That's what they claim. We've seen that being said. However, that's playing hard and fast with what Siddhanta is. Because you see, Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya ji wrote 53 shlokas on just Tattvamasi in a text called Vakyavritti. In the last chapter of Upadesha Sahasri, he has one more chapter focused solely on this Mahavakya, 235 shlokas given there about this 3 words alone. In the Chandogya Upanishad, where this Mahavakya appears, it's given 9 times by Uddalaka Muni to his son Shvetaketu, each with a different angle of looking at it and why it's true, with clear examples. When all of that legwork has been done, for what reason then? Is it for us to believe that Tat can mean anything in this false show of false commonality that we want to get to? Therefore, if anyone says Shastra is not where you have to look, it's about an inner experience, get up and walk away. When anyone says that Shastra is man-made and anything man-made is not sacred, therefore don't worry about what the scriptures say, get up and walk away. Our scriptures are not man-made, they're apaurushaya, not of any human hand. They were revealed to the rishis. So for the following reasons then that we've looked at, it's important to doubtlessly know that what seems like a very benign, pithy, short, diluted statement is anything but that. It encompasses so much, and Shravanam of that is fully required. And in Mananam, I have to only go by Shastra to fully understand the import of any Mahavakya. That's all I have, Swamiji.
Thank you, Hari. Can you all hear me? As we get into these shlokas, it gets more and more technical in its approach. And therefore, the sincerity with which we should have the Shravana process is of utmost importance. Cannot take it lightly. So in this particular shloka, where Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya ji is saying, svabodhe nānyabodhecchā bodharūpatayātmanaḥ dīpasyānyadīpecchā yathā svātmaprakāśane. Yathā tatha, as you can see it in this example, tatha, similarly you can understand through the example the nature of Atma. What is it? See, many people, when we come to this particular intersection to understand, all our understanding process happens through the validation of our own intellect, our own buddhi. That which becomes grahya, that which becomes a grasp of understanding in the buddhi. Again, I'm not qualifying that grasp as good grasp or a bad grasp or whatever it be the grasp. Based on that, we think, speak, act in this world. Anything to be ascertained. Again, today also there is only a battery. So if I see this, I'm not advertising for them, but if you see this, the moment you see it, there is the visual of it. You have seen a similar thing like this. Therefore, as soon as you see, you say, okay, this is a battery. And you would say, by the size of it, because I have, Swamiji, seen you also with comparison with your hand, it I think is a AA battery. Because it has that copperish and black combination, I think the make also is Duracell. Tuck, 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 line information is given. Right? I ascertain it. And I'm glad Hari added 2 layers to it. One is the vritti, and the second one is that vritti, the phala vyapti of that vritti happens when there is that, it is being illumined by that reflected consciousness. Then the understanding is complete. And based on that, I act, react, respond however necessary. That is how I behave in this world. Now, if this buddhi of mine is trying to grasp and ascertain this atmanubhava, the frustration that comes is, I'm not able to grasp. There's a certain portion of it which is logical, reachable, understandable. But beyond which, you're asking me to jump into the dark. I want to first ascertain the experience and then jump. Let us take the example which Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji himself mentions. When the sun is covered by the clouds, and as a gentle breeze comes, the cloud is taken away. What is happening? That which was blocking my direct vision of that sun, that has gone away. That is step 1. That which is already illumining, I come to be aware of. So with this Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, what are we doing? The existing ignorance of my own true nature, that is removed. That is what the Vritti Jnana is trying to say. The next step of it, the buddhi cannot put a stamp of authority because it is not in its realm. And at that point, when you reach, as a serious seeker, you would understand that I am not the buddhi. And in the buddhi, whatever confusion is, whatever doubts are, those are clarified. Then who am I? At that point, who am I doesn't arise because I know that I am the one who is illumining that buddhi. But how would I know it? Because it is of the nature of svātmaprakāśane. It is self-illumining. It is of the nature of illumination. All the great claims of the buddhi to claim that I am understanding, I am ascertaining, I am grasping everything, all of that is borrowed from the borrowed illumination. Why am I using double borrow? Because there is double borrow there. The self is illumining. The Shuddha Chaitanya-Tattva is illumining. It gets reflected. And that reflection is being borrowed for its sense of animation, sense of sentiency. And anything that which is illumined in that sense of sentiency is again illumined by that reflected consciousness. So when it is said that dīpasyānyadīpecchā na asti, once there is a lamp lit, to know that lamp is lit, I do not have to illumine it with something else. Now what will happen in this? There is something very technical which is called anavastha dosha. Now this dosha, sha, not sa, this dosha is, there is a regress that happens. Now what is this regression? If to illumine this, to validate this Atma Chaitanya, I need some other source. Then to validate that source, I need something else. So we will regress infinitum. It's unending. We'll find ourselves trapped in it. Therefore, with all the reasons added to what Hari and Divya have said, that which is the main source of illumination, because of its very nature being svātmaprakāśane, because of its nature is self-illumining, it does not require any other illumining process. Now another simple way to understand this is, buddhi is the field of ascertaining ideas, decision making. I am the self is not an idea. Idea means a concept. It's not just a concept. It is a reality of the most intimate subjective experience. But then why do you force us to do so much of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana? Because the confusion is a concept that I am limited, that I am bound. That has to be eliminated, that has to be removed. Therefore, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Now, once that cloud of confusion is removed, that which is my true nature illumines without any doubt, without any blockade. Now, how did we reach here? Niṣidhya nikhilopādhīnneti netīti vākyataḥ. It comes in the Upanishad itself, in the Chandogya Upanishad, where neti twice it is used, where the idea, Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya ji explains there that the idea of using it twice, एक बार बोल दिया तो काफी नहीं है. नेति वाक्यतः, नेति नेतीति वाक्यतः, दो बार क्यों बोलते हैं? Why twice it is repeated? One, that which is the micro and macro. One, that which is drishta and adrishta. that which is seen tangible, that which is not tangible. All of that is neti. Neti means what? That which is made up of these 5 elements, mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankara, sharira, all of these layers, including the prapancha, however vast that prapancha be, is made out of these 5 elements, and these 5 elements are jada, inert by nature. That which is an amalgamation of these 5, permutations and combinations of these 5, expressing, yielding this kind of multitude, mixing and getting together all the ingredients. There are several schools of thought that believe that, because it has come in the right condition, there is the Chaitanya-Tattvam that is born as a result of all of this coming together. They give a very intelligent example. The intelligent example is, have you eaten pan? Not the make-believe pan, which has a flavor to it, but the actual pan. There is a betel leaf. You remove its strong veins so that when you're chewing on it, it doesn't poke you around. So then you reverse it, remove the veins, and there you apply enough chuna, calcium carbonate. And then you add betel nut. And since that also is very hard, uska almost like churma banate hain. Like, it is cut into small pieces. And there is a betel nut cutter also. In the ancient days, I used to see my grandmother, that age group, they would not have teeth. So they would put all of this and then pound in that small mortar and pestle, and then take it and grab it, and then to make it little more flavorful, people add one bit of clove, few ilaichi, and as per the flavor. Then you put it in your mouth, chew on it. It suddenly starts developing red color. So the leaf is green, the chuna is white, the betel nut is whitish brownish. I'm talking of the original nut, not the processed nut. The processed nut is called jivatva. Anyway, coming back. And all of that mixing, none of them have redness in it. But in the right environment, it produces that redness. Similarly, ditto is this Atma Chaitanya, when all these Panchabhautika elements come together, and in the right environment, this Atma Chaitanya, it comes out. Now, it cannot happen because we are understanding the nature of the self as that which is sat, that which is existential, that which is eternal. Therefore, none of these 5 elements have the ability to produce that permanency, because they themselves are not permanent. And that which is produced by it, the sharira, mana, buddhi, is also not permanent. We have seen that. The example that I often say is, if somebody says, Swamiji, I got a permanent job. I said, congratulations. Wherein? I said, in a temporary bank. I mean, if the bank itself is temporary, how permanent is your job in it? You get the point? So what is the nature of all this? That which is the permutation and combination of these 5 elements? It has vikara. But I, the Atma Chaitanya, is nirvikara. It has kriya. I am nishkriya. It is with vikalpa. I am nirvikalpa. So netīti vākyataḥ, I reach to that point where I have negated. This is the tvampada vichara. See, when you're learning all of this in the same tone like what Hari has mentioned, continuing it, when you pick a literature, when you pick a book which seems like it is talking spirituality, at what level of depth is it speaking? Just because there seems to be a similarity of thought, or seems to be a similarity of vocabulary, is that which it is talking is exactly like what we are learning, or is it something different? That vivechana also has to happen, right? Otherwise we feel trapped to it. We'll consider that which is not even spiritual, maybe a self-help, self-glorification. Like somebody said, there is this new trend. What do they call it? It's almost like a self-help. They have this training sessions. No, Hari, it is not self-care. It is the new version of it, the extension of it. Anyway, it is on the tip of my tongue. When it comes, I'll let you know. Where we feel trapped in all this self-help environment. What are they promoting? All the elements of tvampada are being promoted as your very nature. Glorify it, glamorize it, have the self and the definition of self through these, that which are not permanent. Gain confidence through it. You will have better confidence if you have a greater smile. You will have a greater smile if you have whiter teeth. Therefore, use Pepsodent. No, you get... Now, what is your spirituality? Pepsodent. If you are confident, yes, life coach. These are called the life coach, the new trend. What are they coaching you about? That which is anatma is your atma. We'll have to decipher that, right? So what is this netīti and atma anatma vivechana? That which is not permanent is not something which can be my nature. That which is not the nitya vastu. Nitya vastu tu ekam brahma tad vyatiriktam sarvam anityam. Tattva-bodha. So here he says that this neti that has happened, now I am not this and I am the conscious principle. We don't call that as the completeness of atmajnana. Shastra doesn't declare it that way. This conscious principle is verily tat. If that Aikya is not seen, there is still Dvaita left. I am consciousness, this is Jada. The entire world is Jada. Whether it is battery, whether it is glasses, whether it is watch, whatever it be. There is still that duality, there is still that dichotomy. That aham, idam. What does Aikya do? Aikya here means the oneness of the inseparable nature of this Atma Chaitanya is verily that Brahma Tattva. Because when I keep saying Aikya, Aikya, you shouldn't get other ideas. ये किस ऐक्य की बात कर रहे हैं? Now what does this Aikya point? That which is the substratum of this entire projected reality is my true nature. Therefore, all of this, that which is seen as idam, is a seeming extension, because it is projected on this Chaitanya-Tattva which I am. Now in that, there is no separation anymore. There is no duality anymore. Now why is duality bad? रहने दो ना, अहम भी है, इदम भी है, सब मिलके साथ में रहेंगे. Right? Now, as long as there is Dvaita, Upanishad makes it very beautiful, very clear. It says, Dvayat bhayam bhavati. Wherever there is duality, Dvaya, it will lead to fear. We have heard it even in Kabir Das Ji's Doha. Sometimes he says, प्रेम की गली अति सांकरी जिसमें दो न समाए. जब मैं था तब हरि नहीं, अब हरि है तो मैं नहीं. ठीक है हरि? that where there is Bhagwan, there is no scope for that duality. There is only him. That is called Aikya. And what is happening here? Why is the buddhi required? The buddhi with its clarity is required to understand this, so that it understands the nature of the self, the oneness to the Parabrahma Tattva, Paramarthika Satta it understands, and importantly it understands its own limitation. The ahankara of holding on to that buddhi, that it is the prime, that also is given up in this knowledge. Now holding on to that ahankara, want to merge and be with, दोनों एक साथ नहीं हो सकता. Therefore there is fear to that buddhi. The one who is identified with that buddhi, there is a fear of its own annihilation. We come up to that point and then backtrack, saying, we will still be remaining that. It will be only academic venture now. Not the experiential, subjective nature. It will be only the buddhigrahya, that which is ascertained by buddhi, and we remain at that point. We don't transcend it to become one with the experience. So in this particular shloka, what the 30th one that is saying, vidyādaikyaṃ mahāvākyairjīvātmaparamātmanoḥ Jiva Atma Paramatmanoḥ, that oneness of that which is the nature, the true nature of the Jiva Tattva and the Brahma Tattva is one and the same. That is my true nature. That where this is ascertained, such one is called realized. There are many who question, will somebody following the other books and other religions, will they have the same realization? Yes, if there is this definition of Brahma, this definition of Jiva, this definition of oneness that is being shown, yes, definitely. But that which the Vedantic book is defining, the Shastra is defining as Jiva, Brahma and Aikya, if that is not even the definition, then the realization cannot be the same. But then we fall trap. Swamiji, they are also talking about God, we are also talking about God. They are also talking about emancipation, we are also talking about realization. It is the same, right? It is as same as supposing two cars start from here to Houston. One is going I-45 south, one is going I-45 north. They are also on road, they are also on car, they are also on using gas, we are also using gas, they are also holding a steering. वो भी जपमाला पकड़ते हैं, हम भी जपमाला पकड़ते हैं, इतना कॉमनैलिटी है, पर डायरेक्शन किधर है? Is it the same as this? Think logically. And within the, say, Bhagavan Bhashyakara, he went across the length and breadth of Bharatvarsha, that wherever these words, its definitions, its meaning, its purport was misunderstood, he took it upon himself to challenge them to a debate, correct them, correct the course, and bring it to its essential glory. So the illogical, that which is not complete, to have a tarka yukta, to have a logical way of approach, to debate about it, have a dialogue about it, and to see that there is a fallacy in the logic, has been the age-old tradition. We are not belittling anyone or anything. We are going for a fact-finding mission. Dharmic way of life is to be in pursuit of that truth, nothing less. And anything less cannot be compared as the highest absolute truth either. That honesty should be there as a seeker. Otherwise, we will feel trapped. Clear? Let us stop here. We'll continue. And as always, if you have any questions, please shoot them in the Tuesday group and we will answer. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Take care, everyone.